President Donald Trump tried to corner Canada. He thought he could bully a country of 40 million people. He thought he could treat them the exact same way he treats a local contractor he refuses to pay. Reports say that during a closed-door meeting, Trump leaned across a heavy wooden table. He looked right at Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and he called him governor, right to his face. It was not a slip of the tongue. It was a weapon. A very deliberate, very arrogant hint that Donald Trump believes Canada is just the 51st American state. He expected Carney to get angry. He expected him to lose his cool. He wanted a reality TV moment. But Mark Carney did not blink. He did not yell. He did not go on social media at 3 a.m. to post an angry rant. He just looked back, he nodded, and then he flew back to Ottawa. And he quietly pulled a lever that Washington completely forgot about. Now, the consequences of that single insult are spreading across the American Northeast. The damage is moving in real time. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly what changed. I will show you who panicked first, and I will explain why this exact moment could hit your wallet, your winter heating bill, and your hometown before the end of the month. You are watching history shift, and you are watching an American president realize he just picked a fight he cannot win. Here is what you are not being told about the massive trade war dominating your news feed. Last week, behind those closed doors, the U.S. administration threw down an ultimatum. They threatened tariffs on everything. A total economic blockade. Trump demanded total compliance. He wanted new rules on border security. He wanted more defense spending. He wanted trade concessions that heavily favor the United States. He wants the rules rewritten, and he wants Canada to pay for the privilege. Trump thought he held all the cards. He always thinks he holds all the cards. He assumed Canada would beg for mercy. He assumed they would fold. But Mark Carney is not a traditional politician. Carney ran the Bank of Canada. He ran the Bank of England. He is a financial apex predator who knows exactly how global systems actually work. He knows where the invisible wires are buried. He understands the plumbing of the global economy better than almost anyone on earth. So when Trump insulted him, Carney did not waste time with a press conference. Instead, 48 hours later, the lights flickered in New England. Not literally, not yet. But in the energy markets, a massive, deafening alarm bell went off. The Canadian government quietly announced a strategic domestic review of all hydroelectric and natural gas exports. They used very polite, very bureaucratic language. They cited domestic energy security. They cited the strain on their own grid due to coming winter storms. But the timing was crystal clear. It was a shot right across the bow of the American economy. Canada supplies massive amounts of electricity to New York and New England. We are talking about the raw power that keeps Boston running, the electricity that keeps Wall Street servers humming, the heat that keeps millions of Americans from freezing when the temperature drops. Trump thought tariffs were the ultimate weapon. He forgot that you cannot run an American economy in the dark. Let's look at the receipts, because the numbers tell a story that the White House is desperately trying to hide from you today. Receipt number 1, the transmission lines. Look at a map of the American Northeast. New York and New England are heavily wired into the Canadian grid. They are totally dependent on it. For decades, these states have imported cheap, clean hydropower from places like Quebec. The water flows through massive Canadian dams, turns the turbines, and sends electricity south across the border day and night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In a normal year, Canada provides the fail-safe power for the East Coast. When a massive freeze hits Massachusetts or a heat wave bakes Manhattan, Canadian energy surges across the border to stop the American system from collapsing. Now look at what Carney's government just did. They did not cut the cord. That would violate treaties. That would look like an act of war. Carney is too smart for that. Instead, they just started strictly enforcing existing technical limits. They prioritized Canadian citizens. They told the grid operators, sorry, we have to make sure Montreal and Toronto are taken care of first. You only get what is left over. Receipt number 2, the market panic. The absolute second Ottawa announced this review, the energy markets reacted. Natural gas futures in the U.S. Northeast spiked violently. The people who manage the New England power grid, the operators whose only job is to make sure your lights turn on when you flip the switch, started sending out urgent, panicked memos. They know the truth. If Canada even slightly throttles back the power flow, the U.S. grid is in deep trouble. America has to suddenly rely on expensive, dirty, outdated oil and gas plants to make up the difference. These are plants that take hours to spin up, plants that cost an absolute fortune to run. Wholesale electricity prices jumped immediately. And guess who pays for that? You do. It shows up on your utility bill. It is a hidden tax caused directly by Donald Trump's arrogance. Receipt number 3, the quiet desperation in Washington. The cameras caught Trump walking out of the Oval Office yesterday. A reporter shouted a question about the New England power grid. Trump waved his hands. He brushed it off. He called it fake news. He loudly declared that America has the greatest energy in the world and needs nothing from nobody. But behind the scenes, sources claim it is pure chaos. State governors are panicking. The governor of Massachusetts and the governor of New York are suddenly burning up the phone lines. But here is the crazy part. They are not calling the White House. They know Trump will not help them. They know Trump does not even understand the problem. They are calling Mark Carney because they know Trump's tariff threats just handed Canada the perfect excuse to squeeze the American power supply, and they are begging Canada not to turn off the tap. This is exactly why Trump is losing control of the narrative, and he is losing control of the situation. Trump's entire playbook relies on overwhelming force. He only has one gear. He escalates. He threatens. He tries to create so much chaos and so much noise that the other side simply gives up to make the headache go away. He did it with the trade agreements. He did it with the border. But that tactic only works if the other side has no leverage. It only works if you are bullying someone smaller and weaker who has no way to fight back. Trump threatened massive tariffs. He thought Canada would break. Instead, the leverage completely backfired. Watch the chain reaction. It is happening right in front of you. He threatens tariffs. Instantly, companies pause their investments in the U.S. Midwest. Supply chains get nervous. Logistics managers look at the border and they panic. They stop ordering parts. Factories slow down. Then Canada signals a slowdown in energy exports. Now, utility companies in the U.S. are warning of massive price hikes. Prices rise, voters feel it, the economy shakes. Trump is now trapped by his own tactics. He cannot back down without looking weak to his base. He cannot push forward without driving up the cost of living for his own voters and potentially causing blackouts on the East Coast. When you pick a fight with your biggest, most integrated trading partner, you do not just hurt them, you punch yourself in the face. And the entire world is watching this happen. Europe is watching. China is watching. They see an American president who is entirely reactive. They see a leader who throws tantrums, a president who insults his closest allies to score cheap points on television, but has zero actual plan for the fallout. Trump demands obedience. But you cannot demand obedience from a power grid. You cannot bully a megawatt. You cannot sanction winter weather. He assumed Canada was weak because they are polite. He assumed they would fold. He did not realize that the power dynamic had completely shifted under his feet. He thought he was playing checkers. Mark Carney is playing global chess. This brings us to Mark Carney. If you want to understand why Washington is so rattled right now, you have to look at how Carney operates. He does not fight like Trump fights. Trump uses a sledgehammer. He swings wildly. He breaks things just to hear the glass shatter. Carney uses a scalpel. He is precise. He is calculating. Carney is composed. He is globally connected. When he speaks at the World Economic Forum, the entire financial world stops and takes notes. When he meets with European leaders, they treat him as a peer. They respect his intellect. Carney turns pressure into leverage. When Trump called him governor, Carney did not run to the press to complain about his hurt feelings. He did not cry about it. He did not draft a mean tweet. He went to work. He used the systems. He used the markets. Carney understands something fundamental about the 21st century that Trump completely misses. Power is not just about the size of your military anymore. Power is about supply chains. It is about critical minerals. It is about fresh water. It is about energy flows. Canada has exactly what the United States desperately needs to survive: oil, natural gas, uranium, hydroelectricity. By gently touching the brakes on the power grid, Carney sent a message that every Wall Street banker and every New England governor understood instantly. The message was simple, silent, and deadly. We are a sovereign nation. We are not your 51st state. We are the country keeping your servers running. We are the country keeping your homes warm. Treat us with respect or freeze. It is a masterclass in long game strategy. Carney is building deep credibility with global markets right now. He is showing the world that Canada is a stable, rational, highly competent actor dealing with an erratic, impulsive neighbor. He is building coalitions. While Trump isolates America and builds walls, Carney is quietly signing trade deals in Europe and Asia. He is diversifying Canada's portfolio. Carney is proving that you do not need to shout to be heard. You just need to hold the keys to the fuse box. So, what does this mean for you? You might be sitting in Ohio or Texas or Florida thinking this does not involve you. But even if you do not care about Canada, Canada touches your life every single day. It touches your grocery bill. It touches the gas in your car. It touches the lumber that built your house. And right now, it is directly touching the stability of the American power grid. We are watching history shift in real time. For 100 years, the relationship between the United States and Canada was the most stable, boring partnership on the planet. It was the longest undefended border in the world. Two massive economies linked together so tightly you could not tell where one ended and the other began. That trust is gone. Trump shattered it. He broke it for a soundbite. He told the world that America has no permanent friends, only targets to be exploited. And the result? America is becoming dangerously isolated. When the power prices go up in New York this winter, that is the direct cost of Trump's foreign policy. When manufacturing slows down in Michigan because auto parts are stuck at the Windsor-Detroit border, that is the direct cost of the America First agenda. It turns out America First very quickly turns into America alone. Carney did not raise his voice. He raised the cost of ignoring Canada. He exposed the ultimate bluff. Trump demanded total surrender, and the world simply stepped back and watched Trump trip over his own shoelaces. This is a massive realignment. The United States used to be the indispensable nation. Now, under Trump, it is becoming the unreliable nation. And Carney's Canada is stepping into the void, looking like the adult in the room. So where does this go from here? The board is set. The pieces are moving, and the next few moves are absolutely critical. Here is what happens next. There are three paths forward. Scenario A, the quiet walk back. This is the most likely outcome, even if it happens completely out of the public eye. The utility companies, the massive tech giants who need server power, and the panicked state governors will put so much intense internal pressure on the White House that Trump has to fold. He will quietly exempt Canadian energy and key goods from his tariff threats. He will go on television and declare a massive historic victory. He will lie and say Canada surrendered. But on paper, in the real world, Carney wins. The power keeps flowing, but the damage to the relationship is permanent. Canada wins the standoff. Scenario B, the escalation. This is the highly dangerous path. Trump feels humiliated. He realizes his bluff was called and his ego cannot handle it. He doubles down. He orders massive, slow-rolling border inspections, bringing billions of dollars of trade to a complete crawl. Trucks back up for miles. Carney responds by actually halting the hydro exports. He cites an emergency grid shortage in Quebec. Prices skyrocket in the U.S. Northeast. Rolling blackouts hit Boston during a winter freeze. People suffer. The trade war becomes a full-blown, life-threatening economic crisis. Scenario C, the unexpected reversal. The U.S. courts step in to stop the madness. We already know the courts are looking at the legality of Trump pulling these universal tariffs out of thin air. If a federal judge strikes down Trump's executive orders, the immediate crisis evaporates. The tariffs vanish, but the underlying tension remains. Canada will never look at the United States the same way again. They have seen the monster in the closet. They will rapidly accelerate their pivot to Europe and Asia. They will make sure they never rely entirely on the U.S. market again. This is the part where normal leaders usually calm it down. They pick up the phone, they de-escalate, but Trump does not do calm. He only knows how to push. But this time, he just pushed against a wall that is pushing back. And that wall controls the electricity. The old rules are dead. Washington thought it could dictate terms to its northern neighbor forever. They thought Canada would always just smile and take it. Mark Carney just proved them wrong, and he did not even have to raise his voice to do it. He just showed them the math. Donald Trump wanted a war of words. Canada brought a spreadsheet, and they brought the off switch to the power grid. Do you think Carney is just protecting Canada's sovereignty, or do you think he is deliberately daring Trump to overreact and destroy his own economy? Drop your take in the comments below. I want to know what you think. And hit subscribe if you want the real story, the next update, and the actual facts before the mainstream headlines even catch up. Stay sharp, stay prepared, because this is far from over.